Vinyl Haven Island is a tight-knit community in Penobscot Bay, home to generations of lobster fishermen and their families. For 40 years, it was also home to one of America's most significant contemporary artists, Robert Indiana. Indiana came to Vinyl Haven in 1969, fleeing the art scene in New York City, where he felt underappreciated. He moved into an historic building right on Main Street, the Oddfellows Hall, and stayed. Renaming it the Star of Hope, Indiana transformed the building into a studio, living space, and museum of sorts.
I don't think it's possible to understand who he was and what his work was about without experiencing it with him in that building. He created what I view as one of the most remarkable artist environments in the United States.
To the public, Robert Indiana was a famous pop artist, the creator of the iconic Love Sculpture, one of the best-known pieces of public art in the world. But on Vinyl Haven, not everyone liked him. Chris Davidson is a seventh-generation Islander.
Bob Indiana's presence on Vinyl Haven was complicated.
Indiana was an outsider, often unfriendly, who boarded up the doors and windows on the Star of Hope.
And it just felt like he was creating a fortress. So this building that was always open to the public, the door was closed, literally. So he was controversial. He was a very controversial man.
Still, no one on Vinyl Haven or elsewhere could have foreseen the controversy and tragedy that would surround the final years of Robert Indiana's life.
It's just a very sad story.
Portland Press-Herald arts reporter Bob Keyes has written a new book about those days, The Isolation Artists, Scandal, Deception, and the Last Days of Robert Indiana. Keyes first interviewed Indiana in 2002, and then a half dozen times or more over the years. He found Indiana to be cagey and challenging, but also charismatic.
In his prime, he was very robust and full of energy, and he had a commanding presence.
Keyes says Robert Indiana always took his calls until one day in 2016 when Indiana's art dealer rebuffed him.
As time went on, people that I know who dealt with Indiana expressed concern that he was being isolated and that maybe some bad things were happening to him in Vinyl Haven.
2 years later, on Monday, May 21st, 2018, Keyes learned Robert Indiana had died, probably the past Saturday. Then he learned that a lawsuit had been filed the day before.
During the course of the evening, while reporting and writing about Indiana's death, I was also reading this incredible lawsuit about how he had been allegedly isolated and how work had been made fraudulently under his name. It was a bombshell in the sense that it was alarming that someone so prominent could be taken advantage of and that his life had unraveled so quickly. But it was equally newsworthy that this man was dead.
Keyes' book reads like a mystery, with a cast of art dealers, lawyers, caregivers, and assistants, many of whom were treated badly by Indiana, many of whom made a lot of money from their association with him. And his cause of death? Ruled inconclusive by the medical examiner.
I don't believe we'll ever know exactly what happened to him and the precise circumstances of his death. I'm not sure we'll ever know.
3 years after his death, Indiana's public sculptures are as popular as ever, and galleries and museums continue to exhibit his work. This exhibit of Indiana's Hartley elegies will be on display at the Farnsworth Museum in Rockland until January of 2022.
There's a great richness in his work that I think will continue to appeal to both visitors and artists for lots of reasons. And that to me is a sign of an artist who really has something to say.
I want people to know that he was a very complicated person, that the problems that he had in his life were of his own making, many of them, but that he didn't deserve what happened to him at the end, that he was badly treated at the end, and that we still haven't necessarily paid him the respects that are due in terms of his artwork.
Meantime, back on Vinyl Haven, Indiana's home is undergoing a rebirth.
So this was Mr. Indiana's living quarters. He lived here. He slept up here.
Larry Sturz is chairman of the board of the Star of Hope Foundation, which is preserving the building.
I mean, the first time I came in here, frankly, it was a little eerie. It was dark and there was only a little bit of sunlight coming in around the boards.
Chris Davidson also serves on its board.
This building was in incredible disrepair, way more than any of us thought.
What we had to do was basically rebuild the structure right down to the foundation, the granite foundation.
Crews have reinforced the building, replaced windows and doors, and painted. The next chapter? Well, to follow Robert Indiana's wishes by creating a center for arts education for the island through exhibits, artist residencies, and more.
We're putting together a huge puzzle here, and we've got the edges done, and now we've got to fill in the middle.
Robert Indiana had a wall around him. He put a wall around him in this building. He had a wall around his heart, which is so interesting because what is he most known for? Love, the tilted O in love. So when I reflect on Robert Indiana, I'm sad that he seemed to be such a sad person, that he couldn't open his heart and share it with people who would have welcomed an open-hearted Robert Indiana. But what he did instead is he's given us money, and not just money, but I think there was love and heart behind that as well. So even though he didn't say it when he was alive, we have it now.